Mathematicians, this is Mrs. Steele. In this video, we're going to discuss the two very different roles of the minus sign in mathematics. All right, so the first role is one that you're super familiar with, and that is using the minus sign to represent the subtraction operator. So subtraction operator. And you've known about this probably since first grade. So for example, 5 minus 2, the minus sign is the operator. Okay, totally got that one. And that, of course, is equal to 3. Now, the second role for the minus sign is a little bit more subtle. And in this case, the minus sign is used to represent what I'm going to call the take the opposite operator. So take the opposite. And let's look at a couple of examples for this. I think you've used this before. For example, if we look at this, in this case, the minus sign is really an operator. And it's telling us, let's start at a number line where 4 is, and we're going to take the opposite of 4, which means we go the same distance from 0, but in the other direction. So -4 is the opposite of 4. So sometimes we'll call this -4 instead. Now it's important to know we think of that when we look at this as -4, a number to the left of 0. But from math's perspective, it's thinking about it as taking the opposite of the number 4. Let's look at another example. We might have a variable. So I could say something like that. And in this case, again, here's the operator. And for this case, I'm not going to say -x. Why not? Because x might be a positive number, it might be a negative number. So what we're going to really say here is that we're taking the opposite of x. So if x is equal to -3, then we're taking the opposite of the value of x, taking the opposite of 3, the opposite of -3, which is simply +3. So we have these two uses for the minus sign. One is the subtraction operator. The other one is the take the opposite operator. And to make life confusing, these two meanings of the minus sign are on different levels of the order of operations. So the subtraction operator, of course, is down here where we know and love it in the order of operations at the bottom, where we do addition and subtraction as the last thing. And with that, we're always going left to right if there's more than one operation there, addition and subtraction. Now the take the opposite operator, very interestingly, this lives at the same level as multiplication and division. So up here we'd also have take the opposite. Some people think of taking the opposite as multiplying by -1, so it lives up there with multiplication. All right, last thing we're going to do is just walk through a couple of examples where the nuances or the subtleties of the order of operations are something that we really need to think about. So let's start with some examples. Here's our first example. And let's just identify what do we have going on. We have this exponent here, so we have some exponentiation. And we also have this operator here, take the opposite. And so when we're following the order of operations, we need to think what comes first. So we're going to do our exponentiation first because it comes higher in the order of operations, followed by take the opposite, which is at the same level as multiplication and division. So if we do this, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to square 4 to get 16, and then take the opposite of it to get -16. So everything in your brain is probably screaming that this is really -4 squared, but it's not. It's 4 squared and then take the opposite. Let's look at one more example. Let's say I had, with parentheses, the opposite of 4, negative 4 squared. Now with the order of operations, the first thing we need to do is whatever is inside the grouping symbols. So now we're going to start by first take the opposite and then the exponentiation. So with this order, I'm going to take the opposite of 4 to get negative 4 and then square it or multiply it by itself, and this gives me positive 16. All right, I hope this video helped you think about the two very different roles of the minus sign in mathematics and where each fits in the order of operations. And then also thinking about particularly how the second use, the take the opposite of operator, you have to think really hard about what the order of operation wants you to do. All right, mathematicians, see you soon.